Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show presented by Prize Picks. I'm Eric Lindquist. We have 10 games. That's kind of nice. Mondays, I feel like we get smaller slates. This is a full double-digit one ahead of us. We're going to break it all down here for you. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification as we get started. Get that out of the way early. Hit that thumbs up. You don't have to do it again. It's as simple as that. Well, let's get into it. My buddy Greg Ehrenberg at G Ehrenberg DFS over on the Twitter is getting ready to ride. He's going to give you all the information. How you doing, my dude?
Doing good. We've got a 10-game baseball slate, a little bit of weather, but nothing too bad. You know, we've had some of these other slates where should they make massive weather decisions like yesterday, the Yankees game, that looked potentially a little bit iffy, ended up playing. We've had, a bunch of games last week that I'm getting rained out today. We've just got the White Sox Tigers game to keep an eye on. Everything else looks okay right now.
Yep, everything looks pretty good to me. I don't even know if I have. Oh, yeah, you're right, the one spot. But either way, let's get into it. I guess 10 games. It should be a nice tight hour considering, we've had some 16 game slates to break down of late, things of that nature. It's been bonkers. We got Mike Awesemo here leading the charge at Awesemo. That's the guy you want to go follow on Twitter over there. He'll be in the chat, I'm sure, because he can't help himself. In a nice way. It's fine. Philadelphia's finest spy. But anyway, we continue on to the slate. Let's do it. Atlanta -130 at Washington, 9.5 total runs. Ian Anderson, Josiah Gray. It's kind of fascinating to see 5.3 implied runs with Josiah Gray's 26% K percentage. I think this might just be a scumdacker right off the bat. Might want to play some Braves, but specifically Josiah Gray. That K percentage is pretty intriguing. Any interest, Greg?
Starting with Josiah Gray, he could generate strikeouts, but he's not been good this year. He's a 4.68 expected ERA. He gets hit pretty hard in a lot of his starts. But to your point before about the K percentage, the Braves are a team that could strike out a lot, although they've been a much better offense over the last month or so than they were at the start of the year. A lot has to do with the return of Ronald Acuna. But Josiah Gray, I mean, it's hard to not be concerned when you look at some of his numbers. The 4.33 ERA doesn't look bad, but the underlying numbers are so much worse with a 4.68 expected ERA, a 5.43 FIP. We've seen this a lot with some pitchers in the early going of the season with some really fluky left on base rates, some of them way too high, some of them way too low. Well, Josiah Gray is an 82.8% strand rate, and that is almost certainly going to regress. And that is one of the main reasons why we have the Braves projected as the number one team with the best stack odds on the entire slate. So it's going to be hard to avoid them. They are picking up about appropriate ownership, around 11% chance to be a top stack, 11% projected ownership. So it's a pretty high priority stack. I think Josiah Gray could potentially give up a bunch of runs in this spot. But to your question about whether we want to roster Josiah Gray at all, he is currently projected for 4% ownership. Considering the strikeout upside, I would generally say that would seem reasonable, but he's pretty expensive. He's $8,900 over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Josiah Gray is $9,200. I don't have interest in that kind of salary.
Yeah, I think I do for DK purposes. I think that he's definitely shown out a little bit more of late. And anytime you get these kids that come up and they start getting adjusted, we've just seen so many flashes. And can he get absolutely lit up here? I mean, yeah, 5.3 implied run on the other side is pretty obvious, but he's the most positively leveraged pitcher in the top pitchers tool as it stands right now. Obviously, lots of things will change between now and 8 hours from now when we're at lock, but I definitely have some interest in playing Josiah Gray, especially if I'm going to be a little bit underweight to Atlanta, which would kind of be my game plan as it is right now. I definitely would want to get more to the pitcher on the other side because, his success bodes well in both directions for me. But Ian Anderson, 7,700. I think days of yore, we've thought about Ian Anderson, DFS. Well, he's a sub 20K percentage, a 10% walk right now on this season. I don't know really what happened because I thought he was a pretty serviceable pitcher, but the K percentage has just crashed over the course of his MLB tenure from 29.7% in 2020 down to 23.2% last season, sub 20% now. Maybe a good real life pitcher, but I can't imagine I'm going to get to much of him. Do you have any in Ian Anderson whatsoever today, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably feel kind of similarly about Ian Anderson that you do about Josiah Gray. Whereas, I mean, he's not picking up any ownership. He's relatively cheap. We've only got 1% projected ownership going to Ian Anderson when he has a 7% chance to be one of the top two scoring pitchers on the slate. So it's very low ownership. I don't hate the matchup against the Nationals. And then also there is a track record of success this year. So I'm just kind of digging into his numbers to try to find out why it would be that the strikeout rate is down this year, because he's generating more swing and misses than he has at any other point in his career this year. So I don't know that I'm too concerned about the lack of strikeouts. If he's generating swing and misses, the strikeouts generally, I think, should come. His velocity is down a little bit from last year, but once again, the swing strike rate is up. So I think we're getting a pretty good buy low spot here on Ian Anderson. He's also been a little bit unlucky. 4.53 ERA, but a 3.78 expected ERA. Just looking at his numbers across the board, there's nothing that really jumps out other than that he's underperforming his peripheral stats a little bit. And like I said, I do think the strikeouts are going to bounce back considering the swing strike rate looks good.
I'm looking at like 2-pitch strike stuff. Yeah, it looks fine. It's kind of strange that it is down pretty markedly, though. I mean, it's not some small drop off.
Yeah, but I mean, do you really, if the swing strike rate is up, do you really care?
Yes, and I suppose, I mean, it might be a hitter approach to a certain pitcher based on, early count, but considering he has the identical, and I mean, I do mean identical pitch mix, like we're talking within 1% of each other. I've never seen this flat of a graph over the course of 3 seasons in my life. The 4-seamer, he's literally throwing 47% of the time, like on the number across the year, 31% on the changeup, 21%. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot of reason. I mean, the sinker isn't even a real pitch, but he's definitely got decent enough stuff. And Washington is a team I like to pick on. I'm going to look at that a little bit more. Guess this is kind of why we do these shows. So we have this content. We'll be on MLB Live before lock, breaking everything down for you. I think it's myself and Neil today. You're going to be in the NBA streets, I believe, this evening, correct?
I have no clue. I haven't looked at the schedule past this morning.
Perfect. Well, let's talk Atlanta bats then. Hopefully you've looked at that because they seem pretty important to talk about. Ronald Acuna, 6K, the one-off du jour of the day. Matt Olson, 16% anytime he's going to be facing a righty. You kind of know what you're getting up to there. And now we've got Michael Harris, left side of the plate and batting in the 9-hole pretty routinely. And Adam Duvall on the heels of his first good game since 1943. How are you feeling about the Atlanta Braves in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, this is the team with the highest top stack odds on the entire slate. Same before, it's about an appropriately owned stack, though. They have 11% top stack odds, 11% chance to be the top scoring team. I do think to some extent, though, we kind of have to weigh the value odds a little bit more today than we typically might, just because if you look at the pitching from a value standpoint, I don't know how good you feel about some of these cheap guys, but I mean, Mike Minor's 4,700, sure, on DraftKings as an SPT. You could never really go wrong with a pitcher's 4,700, but at the same time, too, he's projected for 28% ownership. Mike Minor's projected to be the second most popular pitcher on the slate. And I do kind of want to prioritize spending up for pitching. So the only knock I have against the Atlanta Braves is that I want to pay up for offense. They're really expensive. So it's going to be an opportunity cost thing, but they're about appropriately owned.
Oh, we're going to be on the same page on that one. That was the, this is fascinating portion of the program this morning. On the other side of this one, Washington, hey, you can roster Juan Soto. Did you know that?
I did know that because that's what I mean. He's generally the only guy I like to watch the roster from the Washington Nationals. But this isn't really an appealing stack for me today. Like I said, I'm expecting some positive regression for Ian Anderson going forward. 10-game slate, lots of offenses to choose from. And I think there's better teams to look at than Washington.
Well, I don't want to necessarily look at the 2 teams from this next game because the pitchers are pretty freaking good. We got Sandy Alcantara facing Aaron Nola. That is Miami at Philadelphia. Philadelphia apparently winning a zillion games in a row after firing Girardi. That's why Mike is celebrating with his Phillies hat this morning. It's a fresh one. That's a fresh one, my friend. But let's start with Sandy Alcantara, however one might say it. Tomato. We continue on. Most expensive pitcher on the board, him and Nola right next to each other. And I mean, you could say just play the ownership game. But I think I probably, and I'm not sure if you're on board with me, I prefer Alcantara in this spot going up against Philadelphia. I understand that the offense on the other side with Schwarber, with Harper, it might look a lot less appealing, but Miami's been a sneaky team. Secret, that's not the right word, but they've been sneaky good against right-handed pitching this season. They're both just so good. They vault up to the top of my board, but which one do you prefer in this pitching showdown?
Yeah, it's tough because Alcantara has been really good this year, but typically he doesn't generate a whole bunch of strikeouts. I know his strikeout rate is up this year compared to previous years, but there's so much more strikeout upside for me and Aaron Nola, because Aaron Nola 29.3% K rate relative to 24.1% for Alcantara. And, once again, as well as he's pitched this year, he doesn't really have a track record of being a high strikeout guy. And I think the strikeouts are probably going to regress. So he's, to me, around 15%. That's kind of reasonable, but I just don't think there's that much upside in him at his current price point and his historical lack of strikeout stuff. Once again, he's not allowing any runs this year, but still, he's going to allow runs at some point. I don't think he's going to be some guy who becomes a 30% K rate guy, despite the really high velocity and really good stuff. So I'd side with Nola. I don't really have all that much interest in Alcantara relative to what his price point is, but I'm still probably going to be underweight to Nola just because he is so popular.
Yeah, I mean, that's I should have probably led with that. Obviously, you look at the K percentages. I just prefer the guy for 100 more that is getting one third basically of the ownership. Good job, Eric. Good thing I do math every day. But 1/3 of the ownership as it stands right now, 13.4% is too low for Sandy. And Aaron Nola, 42%. He feels like the guy you get in these tournaments, especially some small field stuff, that you're going to see 60, 70, 75% ownership on Aaron Nola. The easiest way to get different and try to just surpass a bunch of them with a chalkier stack is just flip it and turn it into Sandy.
To me, I would rather turn that into Manoa, but yeah, I mean, I think you could view Alcantara the same way. To me, I think Nola is a higher upside play than Alcantara, but if I'm going to be contrarian, I think Manoa is a better option with more upside than Alcantara. And I think there's a higher floor with Manoa as well.
Well, I brought it up. Miami, they've got a 115 WRC plus against right-handed pitching on the season. It's kind of absurd. 166 ISO, Jazz Chisholm at the top of the order. I mean, he's going to be completely unknown, 5,300. I might get a share or two against the most popular pitcher on the slate here, but nobody is a priority here or on either offense for that sake for me. Is there anything with bats you want to touch on in this game?
No, there's some shitty pitchers on this slate, and it's clearly neither of the two in this game. So I'd just rather look elsewhere with offense.
All right, we continue on. Baltimore Orioles. I like them very much today. That is for sure. 2.7 implied run total. I don't like them from a DFS perspective. I'm just happy that they exist after yesterday. Toronto Blue Jays, 5.3 implied runs. Kyle Bradish, my boy, my young boy. This is not fun. In Toronto for my guy. 6.05 expected ERA, 1.59 whip. I've tried to make him a thing a lot this year. I'm going to continue to try to make him a thing a lot this year because I do think that there is a lot of live upside with that arm, but maybe not today against Toronto. Definitely going to be looking more at the Alec Manoa side as well, but anything on Bradish you want to touch on?
No, it's weird because he is fairly decent stuff. He generates strikeouts, but he also sucks. Like he's not he's not a good real life pitcher. He has a 6.05 expected ERA, 1.59 whip. So he allows a lot of hard contact and gives up a ton of runs. The thing is when you get one of those starts where he's able to make it through like 6 innings, only giving up 2 or 3 runs, you're generally getting a really good value game out of Kyle Bradish because almost all his outs, not almost all his outs, but he gets a lot of his outs via strikeouts. And he's always cheap, but no, this is not the spot to go to Kyle Bradish.
Elizabeth Baez, I am from Argentina. That is amazing. We have a female and an Argentinian in the chat at the same time, and they're the same person. Shout out you. Hello. I am from South Dakota.
Yeah, I'm going to claim bot on this.
Okay. Well, it would have been too. Oh no, I thought I'd try. Yeah, let's talk your guy, Alec Manoa. You're going to be going more that direction. I get it. Low K percentage this season. It's just down 22.3% K percentage, 2.74 expected ERA and a sub 1 whip though. Those are good real life things to have against a Baltimore Orioles team that, against right-handed pitching, sub 100 WRC plus. That's your barometer for not being as good. 154 ISO, but nearly 23% K percentage. Those are all useful numbers. Talk to the people about Alec Manoa.
Yeah. So when it comes to Manoa's strikeout rate, also it's kind of funny because you'll see people online that are panicking a little bit about Manoa's K rate, but at the same time, people are like, look at all the strikeouts Sandy Alcantara is generating this year. but their strikeout rate isn't that much different. 22.3% for Manoa versus 24.1% for Alcantara. Something else when it comes to Manoa, his strikeout rate has started to dip. I mean, his swinging strike rate has started to dip a little bit. It was actually identical to previous years before a couple of starts ago. It's still not down too much, 11.5% compared to 12.6% from last year. But where he's struggling to generate strikeouts, it's not against right-handed hitting. That's all been good. It's against lefties. They're generating more contact against him, and he isn't generating as many strikeouts against them. But it's not like this is a left-hand dominant Orioles lineup. There's going to be a lot of right-handed hitters in it. So I think this is a good spot for upside for Manoa. And then once again, we look at some of the other pitchers on the high end today, like Sandy Alcantara, Aaron Nola. I know you said that you like Alcantara as a pivot off of Nola. I really lean towards Manoa here, though. I like the matchup he is at home against the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles offense, I know you had a ton of success with them yesterday. In general, they have hit better lately than they were at the start of the year, which isn't all that surprising because the weather's gotten better. But still, Manoa's been really good this year. He's at home. I still consider this to be an overall plus matchup. And relative to the three most expensive pitching options we have, pitching against the Orioles is far easier this year than pitching against the Phillies or the Marlins. So relative to ownership, Manoa is my favorite pay-up option of those three.
Ooh, look at that. Greg coming in with the spice. I mean, that's kind of a spicy take. Favorite of the three, Nola, Manoa, Alcantara.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's that crazy though, because we have, like, if you're just asking me who should be projected for the most fantasy points, the answer is Aaron Nola. But Nola's picking up double the ownership of Manoa. He's projected for 40%. We've got 21% going to Manoa. And I don't think Nola outscores him 2-1. And then I just think also if we're looking at the somewhat more contrarian options, I feel better about Manoa's matchup than Alcantara's.
All right. Yeah, that's probably fair. There's some lefties that are okay for the Phillies, one or two. Actually, just two. Odubel Herrera, stop it. Baltimore Orioles, no interest. Toronto Blue Jays, confirmed interest. So we're talking about the Braves, as you said, they have the highest stack score, but I can't believe how far down the list Toronto is comparably. Ownership share, third most, I believe, on the slate behind St. Louis and Atlanta. We'll get to the St. Louis side of it. Yikes, I do want to play them. But Toronto Blue Jays, God, I love you, Kyle Bradish, but I gotta stack against you. Or are you going to be doing the same, Craig?
To an extent, but the Blue Jays are, I think, going to be a little bit difficult to get to just because of how expensive the price point is. Mm-hmm. So they certainly make sense to get to, but I don't know I'm going to have as much as the field. The field has them nearly 10%. They are 9.1% owned on DraftKings with a 7.4% chance to be a top stack. Then you also factor in what the price tags are. And this is one of the most negatively leveraged teams we have on the DK slate. Then you look over on FanDuel, and Toronto is 16.5% owned. So they're by far the most popular team on FanDuel. So DK, I think the price tags are a little bit problematic. FanDuel, I mean, 16.5% ownership for any individual team on a 10-game slate. It's a ton. So clearly a good spot for Toronto, but one I think to be underweight too.
Yeah, looking at FanDuel, for all you FanDuel folks who are fading, I don't know. I'm just saying F words now. 24% plus on 1 through 4. We got Bichette, we got Springer, we got Guerrero Jr. and Teoscar Hernandez. They're all going to be very, very popular. If you don't have Matt Chapman back in the lineup here today, I don't know if there's a lot of power for differentiation. I guess Lourdes Gurriel is starting to show a little bit of something. You can always play the catchers in this spot. It's going to be Alejandro Kirk because Jansen continues to be out. But it's a spot where I think on FanDuel, they're just going to be very, very popular because nobody's over 4K. So be very wary there. I would be paying attention to that ownership. But I can't imagine that they're all going to end up cheap against Kyle Bradish, or they're going to come in under-owned against Bradish. Anything else from this game for you whatsoever, Greg?
No, this one, just pay attention to the ownership because how much interest I have in the Blue Jays is ultimately going to come down to how popular they end up being. It's a good spot. I just don't have as much interest in the field if they're going to be, 16 to 17% owned on FanDuel.
Speaking of a good spot, Awesemo.com. That is where you guys want to be. And we have a promo going right now to give you 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. If you've been sitting there being like, I want to have screenshots, I want to be able to post at the Awesemo Hall of Fame, I want some of those things. Well, the best way to do that is to get the best tools and content in the DFS industry for 50% off using promo code MLB Strategy Show. All caps, one word, MLB Strategy Show. It's flashing up on the screen here because that's what my awesome Mia does. He's prepared. Look at that. It's beautiful stuff. 50% off. Use that promo code. And it's not just MLB with the top pitchers tool, top stacks tool, top batters tool, all the player projections, ownership projections, all of that good stuff. But also NBA. We've got a massive, massive game 5 that I know Greg is sweating. I'm sweating for Greg. Go Boston. Continue. Please just get it done. But we have all the DFS projections that you want for that. We have NASCAR, top drivers tool, golf. We have the US Open this week, going back to the country club, Brookline, Massachusetts. Looking forward to it. If you want to have the top golfers tool and all the player projections for that, take advantage of this promo now. MLB Strategy Show, all one word, all caps as well. Stop guessing, start winning, and join us here at Awesemo Plus today. All right. Chicago White Sox, 4.6 implied runs at Detroit Tigers, 3.9. And Lance Lynn is back in our lives. And did you happen to see Lance Lynn's price tag on FanDuel.com?
I have. Have you also seen Lance Lynn's results in the minor leagues?
I have.
They were terrible.
He's 5,500. I don't care. He's 5,500.
Yeah. I mean, so what are we getting out of Lance Lynn? Like 3 innings?
More than that.
You think so?
Yeah. I thought he had like 70 pitches last time out, right? Is that my...
So he pitched.
So
Lance Lynn made 3 minor league starts. The last one, he went 3 innings and gave up 7 runs. He had 3 strikeouts and hit by pitch and 1 walk. The start before that, he went 4 innings, but gave up 3 runs, 2 homers, and only had 2 strikeouts. He's been abysmal in the minor leagues. And sure, FanDuel minimum price, cool. Although I am a little concerned we're only getting 3 or 4 innings out of him. I think this is a really good contrarian spot to go to the Tigers, though. Nobody's going to roster them. There's a lot of name value that comes with Lance Lynn, and he has been so bad in the minor leagues. He's pitched 10 minor league innings this year, given up 10 runs and 2 homers, 8 strikeouts, 3 walks. And these are really terrible results. So it's hard to know because we don't have velocity numbers on Lance Lynn in the minor leagues or anything like that. But I'm willing to take shots on the Tigers and just hope that Lance Lynn isn't totally back or there's something off with him still, because it's hard to explain how bad these minor league results are.
I don't know. He's going up against, well, it's probably not good that he's going up against a minor league offense because then they'll probably hit him up.
I mean, he's already not getting out minor league hitters. Like we've already seen.
Now he's facing 9 of them. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's not a good offense. But at the same time, and once again, like you said, over on FanDuel, he's ridiculously cheap. So if you want to take shots on Lance Lynn at 5,500 and then just hope he pitches more than 3 or 4 innings today, that's totally reasonable because the price tag is absurdly cheap. But at the same time, too, I think there's a lot of upside in the Tigers here because Lance Lynn just might not be right at the moment.
All right. Well, then there you go. He's the 3rd most popular pitcher on FanDuel at 5,500. I don't think on DK I really have any. I'm going to have 0% probably at 9,600. So it was a FanDuel specific thing. That's why I brought up the tag there. There's really no reason that I would want to play him at that DK number, especially with his minor league results. But regardless of pitch count and regardless of how abysmal he was, the guy was really, really nails here the last couple seasons. You know, we're looking at 256 xWOBA last year, 322 expected slugging, 27.5% K percentage. The guy was just flat out good. Texas, Minnesota, White Sox, doesn't really matter. He's found some success. Hopefully he can find some success at 5,500 for FanDuel purposes, because as it stands right now, I think I'd still just take shots and see what happens. But we shall see as we get closer to the slate. If he ends up like 15% or something like that, not encouraging to see what happened. 3 starts, 10 innings, AAA, 9 ERA. That's usually bad. But let's talk on the other side of this one.
Sorry, one more thing to add with Lance Lynn also. He's 35 years old, coming off knee surgery also. You know, I mean, this could just be an age thing. I wish we were able to get velocity numbers for minor league stuff, because if his velocity was still the same as last year, I'd be like, okay, well, it's only 10 innings. Maybe it's not that much to be concerned about. I have a feeling he's going to be coming out throwing with just much less velocity than we've seen in the past.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be definitely watching this one closely because that slate, it would be nice to roster a $5,500 batter or pitcher on FanDuel. Well, there's a $5,500 pitcher on DK as well. His name's Ronnie Garcia. He's got a 30% K percentage so far, which is yay. We're very happy to see that, Ronnie. But guess what? Everything else sucks. 6.41 expected ERA, 563 xWOBA con, 57.1% hard hit percentage. What's he doing? Playing wiffle ball? I don't know. Ronnie Garcia. I would like to try it because the White Sox, I do not believe in them. But can you roster any of this guy whatsoever, Greg?
By the way, I was trying to look for some more velocity number on Lance Lynn. It's just not. It's just not possible to find.
You're at the dark web. Somebody's with a radar gun in the corner. You're looking for the guy.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist though. I can't find it anywhere online. But Ronnie Garcia. So one thing, if we have to pull a positive, is that the White Sox have been so much worse against right-handed pitching and left-handed pitching this year, and they've dealt with a ton of injuries throughout the season. It's still not a healthy rotation or a healthy lineup right now. But Garcia is also kind of weirdly picking up ownership on DraftKings. He's still projected for 10% ownership, which I guess will happen when people are really desperate for salary savings. If he was not going to be owned, I think maybe I'd feel a little bit better about him, but I don't have that much interest in him. Do you?
I do. I have interest in both these pitchers in this game. I feel disgusting, but it's as simple as this. Run creation in terms of like what has really gone wrong for Ronnie Garcia. If he's avoiding the walks, which he last year basically one outing, 16.7% walk percentage, but the year before that is kind of what I'm drawing towards, 9.4% walk percentage. Down to 6.4% this season in a much larger sample size. Yeah, he's giving up a lot of hard contact, but that becomes mitigated a little bit by the run creation numbers we see from the White Sox against righties. You brought it up earlier. One of the best offenses in baseball against lefties, the best offense in terms of run creation, and the third worst, 78 WRC plus, just a 104 ISO. That is just like unheard of kind of stuff. The only team that's worse, the Detroit Tigers on the other side. 65 WRC plus against righties, 100 ISO. I think both pitchers, I mean, if we get Lance Lynn for FanDuel purposes to go 4 or 5 innings, he can find some success. This offense is not that much better than a AAA Charleston offense. Like it's impossible for me to look at this Tigers offense and think that there aren't better players at the minor league in the minor leagues on a day in, day out basis. So I just look at both offenses as ones to definitely take shots on. If you see some ownership, specifically FanDuel, I'll probably get to some Tigers. Specifically DK, I'll get to some White Sox and kind of mix and match there a little bit by playing multiple sites. But I can't imagine that I won't have shares of both pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, if you absolutely need to save money at pitcher, once again, Lance Lynn is crazy cheap on FanDuel. Garcia is really cheap on DraftKings. One thing I will note, though, if you're looking at Garcia's numbers, is that he has worked as both a starter and a reliever this year, and he's been significantly better as a reliever. So that does inflate his numbers a little bit. As a starter, he has a 4.49 FIP. So he's been a worse pitcher as a starter than he has been as a reliever. And I don't think he's going to go particularly deep into the game. I think he probably works deeper than Lance Lynn does because Garcia has gone 5 innings in each of his last 2 starts, but he's probably capped around 5 innings.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, but I definitely still see enough upside if he's avoiding him. He gave up 6 earned to Minnesota, 7 strikeouts in the middle of that. Definitely a fly ball pitcher, kind of seems to be more of what we're looking at from him going forward, which can be problematic, but maybe not against this White Sox team. I'm going to just try to make it a thing. We'll see what happens. But in terms of bats here, anything specifically from either team you really want to talk about? Because I think I've already made it stood that I'm going to be lower on both these teams.
I mean, if Lance Lynn's going to be really popular today on FanDuel, which it seems like is probably going to be the case, that makes the Tigers all that much more appealing to me. And once again, I just think there's a chance, and it's not that I'm saying this is what I think the case is. I just think there's a chance that Lance Lynn, just based on some of his minor league numbers, isn't going to be the same pitcher this year as he's been the last couple of years. He's older. He's 35. He's coming off a torn knee ligament, just had surgery. He hasn't pitched deep into his minor league starts. There's just a chance that Lance Lynn won't be good this year and won't be good right out of the gate. So I think this is a pretty good spot to look at the Tigers as an upside contrarian team.
All right. I'm looking at the bottom bar on the left. Why is there a Minnesota Seattle and a Boston Seattle on the left side? It's Boston. We got to move that Boston Seattle one on the bottom. Okay. Bye to that thing. There we are. I was just trying to time out where we were at. Pittsburgh. There we go. One more game, then we'll talk a little prize picks. Pittsburgh, 3.8 implied runs going up against the Cardinals, 5.2. And boy, are they popular today. Why? Because Mitch Keller, Old Yeller. Anything that rhymes with Old Yeller is not a good pitcher. We saw it with Brad Keller. We're going to see it with Mitch Keller maybe today. 19.8% K percentage, 4.15 expected ERA. A nearly 1.5 whip. Yikes. Woof. I won't roster a single share. How about you?
Were you excited about Mitch Keller in spring training at all?
Little bit. I almost played year long, and I was going to do some like underdog drafts on it, and I for some reason just didn't.
So, I mean, I thought there was good reason to be excited about Mitch Keller in spring training because his velocity was up so much, and that's carried over to the regular season. He's throwing a lot harder this year. It doesn't matter, though, when you're walking everybody, you're not generating strikeouts, you give up home runs. So he's throwing here. Mitch Keller's as bad as he's ever been. He's just doing it while throwing harder this year. His fastball velocity is 96.3 this year after being 94.1. But it just hasn't mattered. His underlying numbers are better than his actual numbers. He has a 5.26 ERA, a 4.15 expected ERA, but I still don't think this is a particularly good pitcher going up against the St. Louis Cardinals. Just Keller is a guy who was considered a top pitching prospect at one point. He has really good stuff. It just doesn't lead to success at the big league level. So the Cardinals, it's a team that I typically only target when they're going up against left-handed pitching. But I kind of think this is going to be an exception for me going up against Mitch Keller because he's just not very good. We do have a lot of ownership going to St. Louis. They're projected for 12.4% ownership on DraftKings. They're actually the most popular offense on the slate. So that is a number that I want to be underweight to. But I just don't think Keller's very good.
I also don't think Zach Thompson's very good. The southpaw going up there for St. Louis, but he was a touted first-round pick in 2019. It's been pretty early. We basically saw one start from him here, but I'm not sure what to do because I want to be taking shares against this Pittsburgh offense with pitchers that are stretched out anywhere remotely capable. And he's also 4,300 and gives you the pivot off of Mike Minor, which is probably what I'm looking to do at every single turn. 74 pitches in his first start. That was 10 days ago. So making his very first career start here today. Zach Thompson, I can be talked into him on DraftKings. Apparently, I just want to roster the worst pitchers ever today. That's my goal. Greg, any Zach Thompson interest today?
So I like that you're talking yourself into rostering bad pitchers, but not even Kyle Bradish, your guy on a large slate. You found other bad pitchers to roster instead. It's a good matchup for Thompson. His results also are underwhelming. They leave a lot to be desired. I don't think he's a major league caliber pitcher. But 4.5 ERA, 4.3 expected ERA. It's a plus matchup. He's not really going to generate very many strikeouts. But let's look at the other guys we have to compare to on the cheap end on DK. So Thompson is 4,300. He's projected for 14% ownership. So the options, it's Ronnie Garcia at 5,500, Mike Minor at 4,700, who I think points per dollar is the best play, but he's also going to be by far the most popular of those guys. Then you got Thompson at 4,300. That's it in terms of like actual punt pitchers, unless we want to include guys like, Bradish at 6,200 or Ian Anderson at 77, but I consider that to be a different price range. So I think there's reason to consider Thompson just based on the price. He's 4,300. If he goes out and he's able to get through 4 or 5 innings and score 12, 13 fantasy points, he opens up a lot of savings.
Yeah. And you just look at the Mike Minor ownership, and I'm doing everything in my power to get away from it. So that's where Garcia has utility. I think that's where Thompson has utility. And you get a matchup against a Pittsburgh team that is just really, really bad. 86 WRC plus against Southpaws, 24.8% K percentage. That is third worst in baseball. Third best in our occasion if we're going to be rostering any Zach Thompson. But as much as I like him, I still think it's going to be a spot where I want to get to some Pittsburgh offense. And why? It's 100 degrees with humidity in St. Louis today. The ball should be flying, and there aren't many power bats to really be drawing out of Pittsburgh, but we're talking about kind of an outlier situation. I'm going to roster a lot of Brian Reynolds, a lot of Cabrian Hayes, a lot of Cal Mitchell, a lot of Michael Chavis. This might be a team I make a pretty aggressive stand with on the other side. At the same time that I play some Thompson, they've got 5% leverage, a 7.5 stack score. That is second best on the entire slate. I'm going to get to absolutely tons. I got to expect people are going to hear 100 degrees and the ownership is going to skyrocket as the day goes on. But how do you feel about this Pittsburgh Pirates offense?
Not great. I mean, there's very few times I've ever rostered Pittsburgh this year, and they're also picking up ownership. Here's the only reason I consider them on DraftKings. They are so cheap that you could roster them with any pitcher. Beyond that, I don't really see real desire to get to them. 5% owned, 4.2% chance to be a top stack. The only reason to get to them is to save money. I don't think they're going to play particularly well.
Yeah, no, Pittsburgh's not going to be chalk. And that's the thing. It's 100 degrees. I think the ball's going to fly. And that's why you're also going to see on the other side, St. Louis. St. Louis is going to be an offense that gets rostered a ton, 12.7% ownership share. Man, they are the top stack for good reason. Once again, 100 degrees, Mitch Keller. Seems like two really good things going their direction. We generally like rostering them against lefties. You said that earlier, but this is an exception to the rule for me. Tyler O'Neill, 3,300, going to be one of the most popular batters on the day. 3,300 is way too cheap for the kind of power he's got. Gorman will be one of my highest owned guys. He's at 15%, but at second base, I'm looking at all the options. He just fits in really, really nicely. What sticks out to you from the St. Louis side, my friend?
So, I mean, when I was talking about St. Louis, it's a good spot for them against Mitch Keller. It's just too much ownership for me as the most popular offense on DraftKings. So it's a team worth getting exposure to, but still, it's just a spot I want to be underweight to them.
All right. Anything else from this game then?
No, nothing else.
I was so excited about everything. I have a pitcher. I want both offenses. I want all of them. You're like, nah. That's all. Prize Picks,
okay.
prizepicks.com. We're heading there.
Anything else you want to add about that game, Eric?
No, I really don't. I have nothing else for you. Prizepicks.com is fantastic. I've been having a lot of fun over there. Hopefully you guys have been checking out some of those VODs that I've been putting out. We had a really silly streak last week. Not sustainable. I will add that. It is not going to be very often that I go 4 for 4, 3 for 3, 4 times out of 5 in a week. It's just ridiculous how lucky I've been getting. But you know what? Rather be lucky than good sometimes. And we're going to keep that going over at Prize Picks, but you don't even have to get lucky in order to take advantage of this promo. Using promo code Awesemo, you get $100 first match deposit bonus. So regardless of being lucky or not, if you put in 100, you get a free 100. And if you go 2 for 3 on some flex plays in the NBA and the MLB, NHL, you simply play through that 100. You would have to be very unlucky not to profit over at Prize Picks. So take advantage of that promo specifically. And not just that, but you'll get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. As much as I love that MLB strategy show promotion that we run, you get a free month. Free 99 is the best kind of 99 just by signing up and playing over at Prize Picks today. Look at the board. I'm going to have my 3 picks coming out a little bit later in the day. We've been running pretty good in the total home runs department, comparing, contrasting, putting everything together in a very unique way. I'm already looking at this Atlanta. Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson, and Ozzie Albies. Ozzie Albies is kind of a throwaway there, but I got to feel like going to Acuna, going to Olson in that kind of a spot against Josiah Gray. Problematic for Mr. Gray on the other side. So I'm going to be taking a look at that one, I'm sure, looking at a couple of those plays here today. Anything that sticks out to you on the Prize Picks board as we get started with the day, Greg?
Let's pull up the old Prize Picks and look at, first of all, are there any all right, for baseball, nothing really in particular. I'm looking through some of the basketball stuff because why not? Why not? Why not look at some of the basketball? Unfortunately, my guy Draymond Green has inflated props. I know that he sucked last game, but I made a lot of money on props on him the other day. And I would like, because it was for the only thing he had, I think it was 9 rebounds and 8 assists when his props on those numbers were 5.5 and 6.5, but they've been juiced up a little bit now. So less interest at this point. If I had to take one prop looking at it right now, over 26.5 points for Jason Tatum. He's pretty regularly been at 28.5 over the course of this series. He hasn't shot the ball well at all from efficiency standpoint. I do think that's going to bounce back. The minutes are going to be there. This is game 5. This series is tied 2-2. We're probably looking at like 43, 44 minutes for Jason Tatum. So I don't mind the over 26.5 points. Let's see, what is his fantasy points at? Actually, I feel better about over 44 fantasy points for Tatum. Either of those are good, but I like over 44 fantasy points is probably the Tatum prop I feel best about.
All right. And in the soccer streets, under 0.5 goals for Harry Kane going up against Hungary. Hungary, pretty good back unit. So I know England's going to be a massive favorite in that spot. They're pretty much going to be able to walk into the World Cup, but under 0.5 goals. See, this is the kind of stuff that you come here for. Somebody asked about CSGO. I have nothing for you from CSGO. Don't even.
By the way, I looked at highlight just out of curiosity. I don't even understand because I don't know how highlight scoring works. There's two guys here that their fantasy score is negative fantasy points. El Barba, he is a negative 0.5 over under for his fantasy score. And Juice, he is a negative point. Yeah, there we go. Mike pulling it up on screen. Juice also negative 0.5 fantasy score. So I don't know how the highlight scoring works, but I don't know. I kind of found it entertaining if there was negative. Well, that and I like the guys' names. There's a guy named Bueno. There's this is
like, El Barba. We did this last.
It
was so good.
This reminds me of dodgeball because the guys' names it's El Barba, Juice, Bueno, Kubala, Douglas. It's
you're not a real pirate.
It's just all these crazy names and then just Douglas, who's like this really standard looking white guy. But anyway, they got highlight. They got everything
like
over Prize Picks.
It's the Key and Peele NFL sketch, right? The college all-star game, right?
Yeah, but although I kind of think that's a little derivative of the dodgeball thing also. But even and then there's this one guy. How do they even get headshots for these guys?
I don't know, but it makes you really feel like DraftKings is behind the ball, a multi-billion-dollar company that doesn't. They have American flags next to every golfer from the Korn Ferry Tour last year. Like they just have it updated. Cameron Young finishes top 10 in everything, and the guy can't get a freaking picture.
No, but El Barba can with his crazy beard over on highlight Prize Picks.
When I say El Barba, it makes it sound like Bulbasaur for all you Pokemon people back in the day.
In the day. Those were the good days.
God, 6th, 7th grade trading Pokemon cards. Just being like, look at this Charizard girl. Yeah, you want to trade for some Charizard? Give me a kiss on the cheek.
They were banned. They were banned in my school. No Pokemon cards and no yo-yos.
What?
Yeah, no Pokemon cards, no yo-yos at my elementary school. They weren't allowed.
Rocking the cradle. That was the yo-yo move.
And parents were complaining that kids were like getting ripped off in trades at lunch, and then like people were, because those were the three big fads when I was in elementary school. It was Beanie Babies, Pokemon cards, and yo-yos.
It's kind of what ours was too. I mean, we're the same age, so that makes sense. I'm a little older.
Yeah.
I'm very, very less mature. But anyway, that is Prize Picks. That was so long.
That's not true either.
PrizePicks.com. Use promo code Awesemo. Take advantage of it. Thank you so much to them for their sponsorship of this show and so many other shows here at Awesemo. We appreciate them a lot, and I like winning money there. It's a blast. Come join me. Check out my VOD. It'll be later out this afternoon. I'll talk about it, I'm sure, later on as well on the Live Before Lock show. 5 games. We're making good time. We're going to get out of here just in a quick second. 5 games, halfway there. San Diego Padres, 4.5 implied runs. Chicago Cubs, Yu Darvish revenge spot, but hard to have revenge in your heart if you're only striking out 20% of batters, which somehow Yu Darvish is. And you've talked about age. You've talked about the elderly. You've said Lance Lynn could suck. Yu Darvish has a larger sample size, and he's been good in terms of whip, but are the strikeouts ever going to return? Does he have any utility here in Chicago?
Still throws hard, which is one positive, but he's also, 35 years old. He's been in the big leagues for 10 years now, plus his time pitching overseas. It's a lot of mileage on his arm at this point where I don't know off the top of my head how many innings he pitched overseas, but I'm pretty sure he's over 2,000 innings total for his career. Let's see, where are we at with his swinging strike rate? Because maybe there are some underlying strikeouts to be had here. Although last I looked, I'm pretty sure we had the lowest swing strike rate of his career. It's not the lowest, but it's close to it. I don't think his strikeout's going to remain this low all season, but it's hard to feel great about Yu Darvish. And then also, we've got a lot of pitchers to pay up for on the high end today. He's $8,400, only 10% owned. So you could look at him as a viable GPP play. There's a lot of guys I would rather get to. I'd rather roster Christian Javier, Alec Manoa, Sandy Alcantara, Aaron Nola. So ultimately, I'm not really sure that Yu Darvish is going to make the cut for me. He's still expensive. He isn't generating strikeouts. He's on the road in Chicago. I think there's other spots I'd rather get to.
All right. And then the name that when I say it, I think the YouTube porn bots are going to appear. Justin Steele. What's going on, man? Don't really have any interest rostering him. 338 expected slugging. He's been decent there. 22.3% K percentage, middle of the road. 12.3% walk percentage. I don't even like San Diego, but he's just a pitcher I find myself never really rostering, and I never really regret it. Any interest whatsoever in trying to roster Justin Steele today at 0 ownership?
He hasn't been bad this year. He has a 4.79 ERA, but look at some of the underlying numbers: 3.3 at expected ERA, 3.35 FIP. He's generating some strikeouts this year, 22%. So it's not like he's a guy who's totally incapable of generating strikeouts. The Padres offense has been a little bit underwhelming this year with the absence of Fernando Tatis. 7,400 for Justin Steele, just because of how low owned he is. I could see myself getting to, like 5% of him or something like that. But if I'm looking for a totally unowned cheap pitching option, I think Ian Anderson makes more sense.
Yeah, neither of those guys are bad enough for me to roster them today. I need to roster my Ronnie Garcias, my Zach Thompsons, down there at the bottom end, 15 and 10% ownership. Yeah, just give me all of that awfulness you got. Justin Steele, no ownership, but a lot more expensive than those other aforementioned guys. But I get it. I have really no San Diego interest any day. If you roster against a southpaw Manny Machado, I'm probably going to say that's just fine. But I really don't want to do anything else here, Greg. Is San Diego a team on your board?
To an extent. I mean, but once again, they're about appropriately owned. 9% ownership, 8% chance to be a top stack. We have them as almost incredibly neutrally leveraged because they're all so cheap. It's a team that, I think is worth getting to, just not that much different than the field. I think if you're getting to 8 to 10% of the Padres, it's totally warranted.
Okay. Yeah, Justin Steele, serviceable, but is what it is here. Let's see. I am looking at San Diego, gigantic top stack score.
Yeah, I mean, they're also really cheap. They have the second best odds of being the top value stack on this slate. So the only team that has higher value odds than the Padres are the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the Pirates are just because they're so crazy cheap. So if you need to save salary with a reasonable upside offense that isn't the Pittsburgh Pirates, that's where I think the Padres come into play. Kind of a confusing amount of ownership. Do you see the amount of ownership going to the Cubs today?
Yeah, I am. But looking at both these teams, I was like, is the wind blowing out and I don't know it? It's like straight across the ballpark, 77 degrees, 9 implied total. I mean, this has got to be the largest implied total of Yu Darvish's career, not in Coors. But yeah, Justin Steele, the 1.55 whip will definitely inflate the San Diego numbers. I get some of that. I don't get this Cubs ownership whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a lot. And while Yu Darvish has been underwhelming this year relative to expectations, it's not like he sucks. I don't have interest in the Cubs when they're going to be one of the more popular offenses on the slate for sure.
Yeah, hard pass. We continue on. Next game on the board, Houston Astros, Texas Rangers. Christian Javier, 30.4% K percentage. The dude's just freaking good. He's a future ace. I love this guy. I love the talent. You're going up against Texas. Roof closed, I'm assuming. Roof closed. We'll double check on that. Again, 8 hours away, 7 hours away now. That we'll have that information for you on Live Before Lock. But regardless, Christian Javier's K percentage warrants him being rostered. You look at the ownership among some of these top guys. He is the one who kind of goes slept on and forgotten. And against Texas, I don't know why that's the case, but I definitely want to be over the field on my guy, Christian Javier. What do you plan to do with this guy?
Yep, I like him. And there's so much strikeout upside here at low ownership. So we've got Christian Javier is projected for 9% ownership on DraftKings, on FanDuel 4%. FanDuel is a really favorable price point, $8,800. And Christian Javier, 30.4% K rate this year, 3.06 expected ERA. He's been elite. He's been a high-end starting pitcher. He's not the best pitcher on the Houston Astros. That's Justin Verlander, but Javier's probably been the second best starter for them, and he's not getting rostered as if he is. Positive matchup against Texas Rangers. The Rangers only have an implied run total of 3.9 runs. So I don't know what I'm missing here, but Javier should be more popular in my opinion.
Taylor Hearn should not be. He's bad.
Yeah, Taylor Hearn should never be popular at all, and he's going up against an offense in the Houston Astros that are certainly capable of doing some damage. So of the teams we've talked about on the high end today, this is the first team I think we could look at that's actually a little bit under-owned. 7.5% ownership going to Houston with a 9% chance of being a top stack. So I think that the Houston Astros, if we could only pay up for one offense today, I would pick the Houston Astros over the Atlanta Braves, over the Toronto Blue Jays, over the St. Louis Cardinals, just because the ownership is like 50 to 25% lower for the Astros compared to those other teams. And I think the upside's the same.
I'm right there with you. I think that this is the team that's my favorite on the expensive end. I think I've already kind of made it pretty clear. Pittsburgh's probably my favorite on the cheap end. That really is going underlooked in my opinion, just from a game environment perspective. It's a lot of bad hitters, but even bad hitters can hit it out. If it's going to be 100 with humidity, that's going to be a really fun talking point this afternoon. But looking at
Taylor Hearn sucks.
Taylor Hearn is terrible. I just love Christian Javier. And so we're going to roster him. We're not going to roster Taylor Hearn. We're going to roster all of these lefty bats because it doesn't matter against Taylor Hearn. You still want to get to your Alvarez's and Kyle Tuckers. Bregman starting to have a pulse. That's cool. You get some salary savings with the likes of Yuli Gurriel, who's been just bad this year. But our boy, Jeremy Pena, is he the favorite to win AL Rookie of the Year? Because he should be.
No, Julio Rodriguez should be. And Julio Rodriguez is, that's totally justified. Julio, it's only the two of them that have reasonable odds. I think last I looked, Julio Rodriguez was like plus 150 and Pena was plus 200. And then nobody else is really in consideration at this point. But yeah, the two of them have both been absurdly good.
Jeremy Pena, 265 average, 9 homers, 27 ribbies, batting 7th routinely. You're going to see a little bit of a bump to Julio Rodriguez, but still just 8 homers, 262. The big difference, Rodriguez is just running amok. The guy, the speed and power utility, his fielding is so plus, and Pena has had some error issues. I believe even in the 7th inning yesterday, he's a guy that got Justin Verlander on the board for 4. None of them got tagged to him, though, because of that errant throw from Pena. So if defensively we're looking at the difference of the two, it's a landslide for Julio Rodriguez. So I guess that's very, very justified. But we're not worried about defense when it comes to DFS. That's for damn sure. As far as batters go here, Houston, 1 through 8. Maldonado, I almost never play. But anything stick out to you specifically from Houston you want to touch on?
I mean, just pretty much anybody. Like you said before, there's no need to avoid the lefties against Taylor Hearn. And he has been worse against righties and lefties, but he gets hit very hard by both handednesses. And Yordan might be the best hitter in all of baseball right now. Yordan crushes everybody. So I think that we could get to the lefties from the Houston Astros really without much issue. The entire lineup, Jeremy Pena usually hits towards the bottom of the order, and he's been one of the best hitting shortstops in baseball this year. He's a 131 WRC plus. Actually, if I look at the wins above replacement leaders in the American League right now, I think Pena is kind of close to the top. He is, so the only players in the American League that have been worth more wins than Jeremy Pena this year, it's Mike Trout, Rafael Devers, Jose Ramirez, Aaron Judge. That's it. Jeremy Pena is 5th in the American League in wins above replacement.
Dear Lord.
That's not a bad substitute for Carlos Correa.
Yeah, they want to trade Jeremy Pena for Carlos Correa. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be on the table.
I don't think it's going to be on the table at this point either. But hey, Minnesota making moves, trying to make something happen. I'm never going to be upset with that. They got the coveted free agent of the season. And if I start complaining and picking and choosing things like that, what a joke. I'm just glad people even want to go to Minnesota for free agency, because I don't even want to go there in the winter for a day. So is what it is. Texas on the other side, if you get Brad Miller higher in the order, third base outfield utility. Duran, I had to somehow sweat him yesterday in the 12th inning as I was trying to hold on to a win. So that was unfortunate, but I don't know how you prioritize anything from Texas. Legitimately nothing. You just have such a good pitcher in Christian on the other side. Anything from Texas you want to talk about?
No, I mean, we talked about how good Christian Javier has been this year and how bad the Texas Rangers offense has been. It's been such an underwhelming year for Texas because they signed Marcus Semien, they signed Corey Seager, and you think like, okay, this is going to be a team that the pitching is still going to suck. Maybe the offense will be good enough to where they could score enough runs and compete in a lot of games, but Seager's been a little bit underwhelming. Semien's been massively underwhelming. Not only has Semien not lived up to the contract, what he did last year, he's been one of the worst players in all of the American League this year. So I don't really want to get to Javier at all. I mean, I don't want to get to any of the Rangers bats against Javier at all.
I might have some shares of Seager because he's a professional big league hitter. I'll have a couple at shortstop, but we're talking like a share or two. That's the only guy that's really going to be in any kind of a justified way in my pool. Maybe a Dallas Garcia 1 or 2 shares, but yeah, if the roof's going to be closed, it's 100 there in Texas today. If it's not going to be closed, there you go. We could talk about that, but I'm assuming it is. So yay. Let's jump over to Cincinnati, Arizona, where we have a massive talking point, my friend. Mike Minor versus Merrill Kelly. And Mike Minor is insanely popular for DraftKings purposes. On FanDuel, I don't even think we have to talk about him. 6,700. He's gaining about 5-6%. If you get a couple shares, whatever. But on DK, We're talking about the second most popular pitcher on the board, around 30%. 4,700 on DraftKings would be your main reason, but he's had 2 starts, 85 pitches that we saw last time out. He has been getting absolutely lit up. He's given up 5 home runs through 2 starts now, 1.44 whip. This feels like the most obvious give me Arizona and not this Mike Minor character I've ever seen in my entire life. But what do you think about Mike Minor and his ownership?
I mean, the whole thing is weird to me because Arizona is really popular too. Arizona's projected for 8% ownership on DraftKings. So it looks like what people are doing is like, hey, Arizona's cheap, Mike Minor's cheap. Let's just play both sides of this and hope we find some upside because Minor has sucked this year. The Arizona Diamondbacks offense in general hasn't been great, although I probably side with the Diamondbacks offense over Mike Minor just relative to ownership because Minor is a 21.1% carry this year, but a 7.95 expected ERA. It's really hard for me to get behind a chalky starting pitcher that's been this bad over the course of the year. I understand it from a price point perspective, but I do like stacking the Diamondbacks for a little bit of leverage, even if they are going to be somewhat popular. But what do you make of this? Because overall, the Diamondbacks are Arizona is the 5th most popular offense on DraftKings. Minor's the 2nd most popular starting pitcher. It's a lot of just bad players that are picking up a lot of ownership.
I like the Arizona offense a lot more than other people do. I think for a month and a half straight, all I do is talk about Christian Walker, just how unbelievable he's been this season and all the different changes he's made to his outlook. You get Varsho, Kelly. Varsho's lost his outfield eligibility on DK, which really sucks because you used to be able to play him. And now with Carson Kelly back, Carson Kelly's 3,100. I'm going to start rostering him a lot. He's going to only get better as it goes along, but he's basically just 2 games back into the fray. It's going to be a guy that I roster a bunch in some of those stacks. You get some salary savings in Perdomo, him. Luplow against lefties is just a massive bat to have at 3,500. Some of these lefties are interesting, like Josh Rojas. It didn't really matter. They put up 13 yesterday, but with really no home runs to speak of, and that wasn't going to compete with the Yankees or Baltimore in that kind of a facet. But today, I'm going right back to Arizona. So I get it. Mike Minor, I just can't do it when he's going to be this popular. You just see how much negative leverage he has going his direction. Give me all of these other crappy pitchers at the bottom.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so, I mean, I get it. The Diamondbacks are cheap. They suck. Mike Minor's cheap. He sucks too. Do you know Arizona's WRC pluses against lefties this year?
Yeah. It's 72, I think I saw. Right.
81. So second worst in baseball. If there were 72,
Miami's worse.
Yeah, Miami 74 WRC plus against lefties. That is last in baseball. Arizona second to last. Bad offense, bad pitcher. Something has to give though. Stoppable force, movable object. Somebody's giving up runs or somebody's getting shut down. But just because Mike Minor is so popular, I have a slight lean towards the Diamondbacks offense.
All right, Merrill Kelly on the other side, just a good real life pitcher. Limits hard contact. 20% K percentage ain't great. Neither is a 10% walk rate, but such is life. He's going to be good. I don't really have any Cincinnati interest whatsoever.
Yeah, Cincinnati is a team that I very rarely stack. Even when they're in a good spot, they end up being so popular that I don't end up getting to them either. So this is probably the team I've been the most underweight to over the course of the season. Like you said, Merrill Kelly's been pretty solid. Cincinnati 88 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. There isn't enough strikeout upside to Mike Minor for me to want to roster him, especially when we have so many good pitchers to choose from on this slate. But he's good enough so that I don't want to roster the Reds.
And we talked about Arizona. I think I just salivate over this team every day. So we're good here.
Yeah, we are all set.
All right, we continue on. Two to go. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Greg, we're going to be going, 5 minutes over? We'll get ourselves out of here in due time. Brady Singer, Alex Wood, San Francisco Giants, 4.5 implied runs at home, facing the Kansas City Royals, 3.5. There we go. Alex Wood. Oh boy. 1.34 whip. Things are starting to not look as rosy. He was a really good starter with the Dodgers. He's okay here. I don't really know what to make of him going up against a Kansas City team that has a lot of righties and a lot of righty power. Obviously, the ballpark should suppress a lot of that, but it's always a question of comparing him to some of the top end guys. And he's kind of in a no man's land for me. 8,300, lots of negative leverage, 24.4%. I feel like I'm going to be very much shorting Mike Minor and Alex Wood on this slate. Are you planning to roster Alex Wood at all today?
So here's one positive about Alex Wood. despite him being, older at this point, 31, not that it's crazy old or anything, but this is actually the hardest he's thrown of his entire career. He has a career high fastball velocity. So that's certainly an encouraging sign. And then you look at his numbers this year, like you said, not great, not terrible either. 4.23 ERA, 3.91 expected ERA. The strikeout rate, 23.3%. That's a little up over his career average. And I mean, compared to the other guys we have to choose from in his price range, like you said, he's kind of in no man's land. But I'd rather roster him than Yu Darvish, who's about the same salary on DraftKings. The only other pitchers in this price range on DK, it's Merrill Kelly, who I don't really have all that much interest in, and Brady Singer on the other side of this game I don't have interest in. So if you have to roster one pitcher who's, in the mid 8K range on DK, I do think that Alex Wood's the best option.
Yeah. I think for me, it just might be avoiding the entire range altogether. I'm going to try. Again, you say that now, but you never really know until you start building lineups and see how it's coming out. I think I prefer trying to get to some Josiah Gray just because of how popular Atlanta is, but that's $600 more. You never really know. Brady Singer on the other side of this one, lots of positive leverage. And for me, I don't understand why he's not getting more attention. He's at a 24% K percentage. This is a massive ballpark upgrade compared to him pitching in 95, 100-degree weather in Kansas City that we've seen over the last 2 weeks. I guess that doesn't show for his entire season, but 44.8% hard hit percentage can definitely get hit up by some of these lefties, but there's still enough strikeouts where I'm going to have some interest, especially that San Francisco lineup can change drastically based on which iteration it has. I'm assuming if you get Flores, Estrada, La Stella in the lineup, those kind of guys, he has a profile that's far, far worse for me. I'll be very I'll be very reactive to how the lineup comes out, but Brady Singer, decent enough pedigree. How do you feel about him in this spot?
No real interest. He's kind of expensive, and it's a tough matchup against the San Francisco Giants. And I find the Giants nearly impossible to stack unless it's a really good matchup, because here's the issue with San Francisco. They pinch hit so much, and they have these guys, like you mentioned before, like a Wilmer Flores, for example, who a lot of times could sit against righties but play against lefties. And then there's just all these times where you'll stack the Giants, be like, oh, cool, they put up 3 runs in the first 4 innings, and then the other team goes to their bullpen, and all of the starters for the Giants come out in favor of hitters from the handedness of the other side. So I find the Giants to be really difficult to stack when it's just a mediocre matchup. So I don't want to get to Singer, but I'm not going to stack the Giants either.
Yeah, if you got to shares of chalk, I'd be fine with that. Guys hitting baseballs just insanely hard. Yastrzemski never really gets pinch hit for, so he's the one guy that has zero risk, just defensively. They'll keep him out there over Jock. 495 expected slugging. Little different than 672 we've got from Jock. My God, he's been incredible. Kansas City, just to touch on them quick, you can always roster Sal Perez against a lefty. You can always roster Melendez at this point in time. And Bobby Witt starting to come alive. Another guy that had a decent enough day yesterday. I'm okay getting to a couple shares of Kansas City, but there's no priority in this game from Bat's perspective.
No, I'm probably not going to stack the offenses.
All right, let's round it out. Minnesota Twins, 4.1 implied runs at Seattle Mariners, 4.4. Chris Archer, Chris Flexen. I will not stay flexing in my candy paint. Roland Dank sip and drank on an 84 swing. Shout out Mike Jones. I have no pitching interest here. How about you?
No pitching interest. The Mariners are one of my favorite contrarian offenses to stack on the slate, though. Chris Archer is so beyond washed at this point in his career, and good for him that he's staying healthy. And this is probably the most he's been able to pitch in like 5 years, because there's constantly been injury issues with Chris Archer. And so Chris Archer, 44 innings for him this year. It is the most work he's been able to get since 2019 with the Pirates. But the results are just not there. And sure, the 3.65 ERA doesn't look bad, but he's a 5.26 expected ERA. His strikeout rate is only 17.7%. Chris Archer used to be a guy who struck out so many hitters and was so good when he made home starts for the Tampa Bay Rays. And he's not that guy anymore. The Mariners offense is pretty good against right-handed pitching. They project for less than 2% ownership. So on both FanDuel and DraftKings, I like getting behind the Mariners as a contrarian stack.
I like that shout out. Minnesota, going a little bit overowned. I'll have my YOLO stack in there somewhere, but definitely not a priority whatsoever. Be careful of that Byron Buxton ownership. 18.4% is a lot going his direction. I get it. He's 4,900. Way too cheap for Byron Buxton, but alas, not going to be my favorite spot to just go completely nuts with. We shall see. as the day goes on. But Seattle, I love the shout out. Greg, we're through it. 10 up, 10 down. That's math. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
No, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got the baseball show later in the day. We got a big NBA game tonight. So check out all that. Lots of reasons to come check out the channel later on the day.
Yeah, we got Best Ball Mania Mondays. That's going on the Best Ball channel. That's at 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. Nick Lepre, Makachevsky coming on in. Matt Savoca producing. What is that trio? That is insanity. I'm going to check that out. You should too. 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. MLB Live Before Lock. Neil, myself, coming back at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And then you said it, NBA Deeper Dive. You and Adam. That'll be great. 7 p.m. Eastern time. 8 o'clock, Laffy and Josh. And then don't forget the NBA watch along. Greg and I were fortunate enough to do that game 1. Might stop on by here tonight for game 5. Going to be a big one. 9 p.m. Eastern time. That NBA watch along will get kicked up. So check it out. Thank you so much to Mike Awesemo, Lawrence behind the scenes, doing a good job. Still an absolute traitor to his country and his city. But whatever, it is what it is. He's Greg Ehrenberg. He's great. I'm Eric. I'm okay. And I'm just leaving. Bye.
You really overstated yourself there.
Tinder over.